This is Niavaran Palace in North Tehran, former residence of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. It was from here that in January 1979, the Shah left to go into exile, never to return. 2 weeks later, Ayatollah Khomeini proclaimed an Islamic Republic and the end of 2,500 years of monarchy in Iran.
There is a very specific and special relationship between me and my people. As long as this special relationship exists between myself and my people, I don't see where somebody should or could step in and break it.
Reza Khan's rise to power coincided with his country's decline. By the 1900s, Iran, known to foreigners as Persia, had been carved up by the imperial superpowers of Russia and Great Britain. As his country fell apart, Reza Khan began his ascent to the throne. He joined the Iranian Cossack Brigade and rapidly rose through the ranks. After the First World War, he entered the political arena as a military strongman. In 1926, he ousted the ruling Qajar dynasty and crowned himself Reza Shah Pahlavi, King of Kings. At his side during the coronation was his 6-year-old son, Mohammad Reza, now Crown Prince and heir to the throne. "Judge for yourself," he later wrote, "how much fear and reverence all of that ceremony could inspire in a child of 6. Fear and reverence also sum up the feelings inspired in the son by his father. Reza Shah dominated his countrymen as well as his son. Believing Iran had become stuck in the Middle Ages, he applied the disciplines of the parade ground to bring it into the modern world. Taking his inspiration from the West, he built railways and roads and founded hospitals, schools, and universities. At the same time, he dealt ruthlessly with enemies and rivals, making the Pahlavi name feared and hated throughout Iran. His most stubborn opponents were to be found among the Iranian clergy. Iran is a Muslim country, but like no other. Nearly all Iranians are Shiites, the minority sect in Islam. Shi'ism is the repository of the country's most traditional beliefs. It gives to the Iranian psyche Puritanism, a distrust of authority, and a reverence for martyrdom. But Reza Shah had no time for a religion that got in the way of modernization. In a frontal assault on tradition, Reza Shah outlawed the chador, or veil, worn by women, and for good measure he ordered that men shave their beards and adopt the Pahlavi cap. In 1941, they invaded from the north and south. There was virtually no resistance.
The swift action that occupied a weak country in danger of falling into the grip of Hitler.
Expecting to be dethroned, Reza Shah abdicated in favor of his son. He went into exile in South Africa, where he died in 1944. His last message to his son was, "Never be afraid of anything." With no guarantee that the Allies would approve his succession, the Crown Prince had to move quickly. On the 16th of September 1941, the plainly nervous 21-year-old arrived at the Iranian parliament and swore to reign as a constitutional monarch. Iran had a new king, and no one seemed more surprised than the new Shah himself.
He was like a child who is suddenly thrown.
Like his father, the Shah encountered the most stubborn resistance from the Shiite clergy, and, like his father, the Shah dismissed these criticisms as the reactionary views of a medieval mindset.
If you are unhappy that your country makes progress, if you are unhappy that your country is saying goodbye to a feudalistic system, if you are unhappy that half of the population of your country, the women, are emancipated, well, this I cannot help.
The sharpest attacks on the Shah came from an obscure priest based in the holy city of Qom. Ruhollah Khomeini preached against the Shah's reforms, claiming that the emancipation of women was against Islamic law, and accusing the Shah of being a puppet of foreign powers. In June of 1963, Khomeini was arrested and serious rioting broke out in Tehran and in other parts of the country. The Shah hesitated. Unwilling to stain his white revolution with blood, he refused to call out the army. His prime minister had to take the responsibility. The army went into action and several hundred people died. By the mid-70s, the Shah had all the levers of power firmly in his grasp. Government was a mere instrument of his will, and all power emanated from the throne.
The Shah was the only game in town. He was the fount of all power. He was the fount of all patronage.
It became fashionable to talk about West toxification, and it was understood that no one was more toxified than the Shah himself. His interests and his lifestyle all seemed to indicate a ruler who thought Western culture superior to Iranian. His religious critics argued that he was simply unsuited to be the king of a Muslim country. Ayatollah Khomeini had been a thorn in the Shah's side for 14 years. Recently, however, he had started calling for the overthrow of the monarchy. Reassured by Carter's unconditional support, the Shah decided to retaliate.
And in it, because he was furious about Khomeini, what he had been saying about him. So he wanted to answer, and he had this habit to answer any insult, any criticism, whatever the source. So he ordered the preparation and writing of this article, and they gave it to me to be published in one of the newspapers. It was a routine matter.
The article accused Khomeini of licentious behavior and of being a British agent. It provoked demonstrations from his followers in the holy city of Qom. The authorities reacted, and a number of people were killed. The deaths in Qom triggered a recurring cycle of often bloody demonstrations. Secular opposition groups rallied to Khomeini's banner, and within weeks, unrest had spread throughout the country. January the 16th, 1979, the Shah and Queen Farah left Niavaran Palace for the last time and headed for the airport. Like his father before him, the Shah was to die in exile. He wanted to settle in America or Britain, but his former allies did not dare offer him a home. He became an international nomad looking for a refuge, and all the time his cancer was getting worse. He ended up in Panama, where he gave his last full-scale interview. The Shah left Panama for Egypt in March 1980. By then he had seen the return of Ayatollah Khomeini and the rapid capitulation of his army.